Hi, I'm Marius Helgå. I'm a fan of Gimnàstic de Tarragona.
Hi Marius, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
And Marius, you just want to tell everyone what it is that you do for work?
My work is as a union representative for the labor union for state employees in Norway. And in my spare time, besides watching football, I spend a lot of time playing bass trombone in wind bands and orchestra.
That's interesting. And have you been playing that a long time?
I've been playing since I was a child, yes. Started in a school band when I was around 8 or 9.
So Marius, my first and most important question, how and why Gimnàstic de Tarragona?
In 2006, I was visiting Spain with a band. I had an extra job as administrator for. It was a band with young people from the entire county where I lived at the time. And Tarragona was one of the cities we visited, and I simply fell in love with the town. It was an amazing place, and at the time I didn't support any Spanish teams, and this also coincided with a pretty good time for the team. They were playing. They had been playing in La Liga. I don't remember if that was the 2005-06 season or the 2006-07, but they was up there, and so I decided to start following them. And a few years later, I revisited the city and then also got to go to a match, because the first visit was in the middle of the summer, so there was no football. But then I went for a winter trip and got to see a match in the Segunda División, the second level of Spanish football.
Where are they now? In what division?
They are now playing in the third level, Segunda B. I think last season was cancelled midway because of the pandemic, and I think Gimnàstic de Tarragona was one of the teams not crying for that, because they had a horrible season. They were still in the bottom of the third level. So I know the next they restarted a new season, and things look a little better now. So I'm hoping for a return to the second level, because that makes it so much easier to follow them from abroad.
That was going to be my next question. How are you watching them at the moment?
On the third level, I'm not watching them because not all matches are broadcast.
Right.
So if I find a stream, I try to set off time to see it. But when they were playing at the second level, it was so much easier, because the league is streamed for free, totally legally on YouTube. So it was really, really simple. Besides, the local radio in Tarragona is broadcasting all matches on the web, but that is in Catalan. So, and I don't speak neither Catalan nor Spanish, so it's quite limited what I get to hear for what I get out of listening to this web broadcast. But at least I get information about scoring. And
Tarragona is part of Catalonia.
Yes, it's about 1 hour with the train. And my impression from my visits there is that everyone is even more Catalan than they are in Barcelona.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're quite close to Barcelona.
Yeah. So I guess most people in the town, they know that Gimnàstic is a smaller club, and they cheer for Barcelona in the big tournaments.
You put up an interesting picture of them having a friendly with Barcelona quite recently, before the beginning of this season.
They played a preseason game against Barcelona, and that was streamed online with Catalan television. And possible to watch from abroad. So I got to see most of that match. It was great finally watching them again. they lost the game, but who doesn't lose against Barcelona when they're playing in the third level? But I think it was a great test before the season, and so it's only a shame that there couldn't be any spectators.
This is a club I could find very little information about in English, and you had warned me about that. You told me that I'm going to be using a lot of Google Translate, and I did most of it. But if you can tell me a little bit.
Yeah, the club was pretty old. It was started in the late 1800s as a gymnastics club, as the name maybe reveals as well. And then later started a football department. And they always been playing in the second and third levels, and some seasons in the top level now and then. They had a pretty good period in the 50s. And also one of their claims to fame is that when Real Madrid opened their new stadium, Santiago Bernabeu, they had an enormous long spell of wins at home. And the first team ever to beat Real Madrid at Santiago Bernabeu, that was Gimnàstic de Tarragona. And they are still the only team ever to do that, to beat Real Madrid at Santiago Bernabeu in their first attempt.
Brilliant.
So that is quite funny.
Have you been there regularly to see the games?
I've been planning to go back. I've only been there once so far. I've been planning to go back, but then the pandemic made a stop for those plans. So,
right.
But it's on my list when I can start traveling again.
Who is your club legend?
Yeah, club legend. I've always been a bit fascinated in a way by the fact that a player that had been playing in the Norwegian league had been playing there. He wasn't there for a very long time, but he was quite a figure when playing in Norway.
Okay.
And that is the Swedish Tobias Grahn, who had some time there. He played in the La Liga season, and when they got demoted, he went on loan to Hertha Berlin. And never to return. I guess he would have returned if they got direct back up again, but they didn't.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you about was a player who you felt deserved a bit more praise.
The goalkeeper for some seasons, Manolo Reina, he was an amazing guy. He got much praise, but I think he could have been really playing at higher levels. And it was almost so that the defense could do whatever they wanted. If they made a penalty, it didn't matter because Manolo saved.
Wow.
He had an excellent statistics for saving penalties. It was almost crazy. So I've always been worried when my club get a penalty against them, but with Manolo Reina in goal, it was just, so what? He's going to save. So he's playing in Mallorca now as a goalkeeper, but he was in Gimnàstic from 2013 to 17. A few years ago, also in my local club in the Norwegian fifth level, they had a goalkeeper with over 50% saves in penalties.
Wow.
So, of course, this was in the fourth level, fifth level, but still, that is quite a
feat, yeah.
Quite a statistic.
Yeah. Especially now, this new handball rule. You're seeing
there are so many penalties.
It's a little unfair now on goalkeepers, I feel.
I see so many, and I see so many defense players when there are set pieces and also in play trying to play with their hands almost tied in the back of their body to avoid any trouble.
Contact, yeah. So, I found it interesting because, and I don't know if you have noticed this, but Italian defenders, their natural instinct is to tuck their hands behind always. And I find the other
Yeah.
leagues are a little more open, but the Italian defenders are the ones who have been doing this much before the handball rule was as open
Oh,
as it is now.
I haven't noticed that, but you might be right. I think Italy has, they have always been pioneers in developing the defense role. Other countries have been trying to develop other parts of the field, but in Italy, defense have been a much more valued skill than in many other leagues.
You said that you're a fan of many teams. Any Italian teams in that bunch?
I've been following Juventus in Italy, so I'm quite mainstream there.
So my next question is a game that left you elated and a game that left you disappointed.
I've only been watching them once, and that was a very special experience. They were struggling at the bottom of the second league then. This was back in 2010.
Okay.
And I was seated on the long side of the stadium, quite close to the benches where the players and the coaches were. And a few rows ahead of me was two men. I guess they were father and son, one about 30 years, the other about 60. And every time the coach moved within hearing range from them, they started yelling at him. Really, as I said, I don't understand Catalan, but he was, it was no, you don't have to be a linguistics expert to understand that it was not nice things they were yelling at him. And Nastic lost the game, and the following Monday the coach was fired. So it seems like those two guys were not the only ones mad at him. So that was really a never-ending memories, even though the game was a loss. Otherwise, when they the last time they got promoted from the third level to the second level, I was following text updates from the start of the game, and then I had to board an airplane.
Okay.
So I was sitting in the plane for a little over an hour and wondering, how is it going? How is it going? So when we landed, I immediately turned on my telephone and saw that they had been promoted, so I could start sharing. In Norway, I follow a team called Tromsø, currently playing at the second level, but for the last 40 years, they've been mostly in the top level. And in 2015, they were playing at home in the second last round of the series. And we were in the position that if we win this game, we don't get relegated. And before the match, during when the teams was entering the ground, I had been placed on the side of the pitch by the supporters club with a giant flag to wave when the players was entering. And it was a horrible weather. It was raining crazy and a really strong wind. So keeping this giant flag up was a real struggle. And the camera guys picked up my struggle with the flag, so it was broadcast.
Oh.
And afterwards, part comedy show about football picked up this footage of me struggling with waving the flag in the strong winds, and this quite funny ex-footballer hosting the show was laughing his heart out of this. And after that, the clip went viral. So suddenly my Facebook exploded with notifications. I couldn't use Facebook for 3 days because every time I opened it, I had 400 notifications. And so if someone had been writing something else to me, I would never see that because it was drowning. And we got so much positive attention from that. It was really fun. All national media was showing the clip, and also some of the international web pages like 101 great goals had picked it up. So at one time, their 3 top feature stories was something about Jose Mourinho, something about Wayne Rooney, and the clip with me struggling with the flag.
Wow. Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really fun. So the following weekend, I went for an away game in Haugesund, and then I experienced like 12-year-olds coming up to me. Whoa, it's you. Can I have a selfie?
I hope you gave them one.
Yeah, of course. It still happens. Someone recognizes me from that. I don't. It's not as often that people ask me for selfies, but it happens that I'm asked, "Oh, was you the guy with the flag at Alfheim Stadium?" It's funny with Tromsø is the northernmost professional football team in the world.
Oh,
yeah, you're really far north. The club's one of their biggest matches ever was against Chelsea in the 1997 Cup Winners' Cup, I think it was then. And it was in November, and it was snowing. Lots of snow on the ground, and it was it's totally crazy match that Tromsø won 4-3 at home to Chelsea, and the next week they got battered in London, but still the images from the match in Tromsø are iconic, and I still see now and then English media writing stories about when Chelsea went to Tromsø to play in the snow.
When I first got in touch with you, I said, "Hi, Marius, how are you doing?" And you said, "Hi, I'm doing well." And then you sent me a picture. You were in Sweden and at some, what was it, 9th division? You said?
Yeah, it was the 9th level in Sweden. Because there are so many restrictions between countries to travel between countries now during the pandemic. But the neighboring region in Sweden was. I could go there without having to be quarantined when I returned home. At the times, I figured out at the match on that level, there are going to be, 25 people. It's no infection hazard if I don't go near anyone. And like with 25 people, it's no problem keeping to myself.
Right.
So I went over the border and watched 2 games at the same day. It was 1.5 hour driving with my car, so it's not very long. Not very long to the border. So I spent in a normal year. I watch a lot of grassroots football, the low levels. Try to visit as many stadiums as possible, as ground hopping is all about. And this year, naturally, due to the pandemic in Norway, all leagues beneath the 3 top ones is played, but everything below is cancelled. So it's really, and that combined with it being practically impossible, traveling abroad, have made hard to keep up with that this year. I've been watching a few under 19s games because under 19s and younger have been allowed playing, but not for the senior league.
Ground hopping is a real passion of yours.
Yeah.
You rattled off a list of countries. You said Romania, Germany, Sweden, Denmark. Am I missing anything? How many countries and how many grounds in the last year before the pandemic?
Yeah, in total, I've been watching in 11 countries.
Wow.
And for me, living in Norway, which is in the northwestern Europe, the most exotic has been Romania in Southeast Europe. I've been there twice for some organized trips called Football in Heaven. It's nice. It's a journalist from Romania organizing everything, booking a bus, making a schedule for watching as many games as possible, trying to get the local football authorities to reschedule games, making it possible to watch several games in one day. And so the only things I as a participant had to do was booking the flight, booking hotels, and paying a share of the cost for the bus. So yeah, it's been a real experience. So I hope he continues to arrange these tours after the pandemic, and I will surely try to go to Romania again. I've also been, in connection with work, I've been traveling to Riga in Latvia, to Gdansk in Poland, and when I had these travels, I've booked some extra days on my own cost and tried to watch some football in the weekend before the work and such.
Brilliant! It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is an excellent way to see a country in a different way. I don't spend as much time watching the big tourist attractions, but I feel I get to see a more genuine part of the country. And I've also been some weekend trips to Germany and Netherlands, where I tried to make my own schedule for some days, and it's also amazing.
You were telling me about your job being a union representative. Before that, you worked in film preservation.
At the National Library in Norway, I was working in the film preservation department, and it was a really interesting job. But I also was the local union rep at the office, and after several years as that, I got elected as to a national position and got unpaid leave from the National Library. But doing film preservation is, as I said, quite interesting. I get to see lots of boring material, but also some really interesting things, both feature films, commercials, and documentaries, not least, like these film reviews that were from before everyone had the television. The cinemas were showing these newsreels every week. They got a new newsreel every week, and showed before the other films, and that was the only way for people to get the news that wasn't printed or on the radio. They got to see what was happening. So it was quite popular, and the National Library of Norway have been restoring lots of those to make them possible to be seen by the coming generations as well as a historical document.
Brilliant. You miss it?
Yeah.
Film preservation?
Yeah, kind of. So it was a great job, and I'll probably return to it sometime. But I also love the job I'm doing now. So it's great in different ways, and I look forward to the day when I go back to my ordinary job, as I usually call it. My hometown is Mo I Rana it's in the northern parts of Norway, and when I got this national union position, I had to move to because the office was in the capital. But one day I'm going to move back north. It's a different nature. It's a different climate, and I really like it up there. My parents are starting to get to age, so they need some help in time. So it will be great living close to them, and of course I have lots of friends there that I'm still keeping in touch with, and it will be nice to see them more often as well. But I'm not sure when that will be. It might be in 2022.
Okay. So what's life like in the north?
Mo I Rana is a town with around 20,000 inhabitants. It's of course it's not big in a global scale, but by Norwegian conditions, it's a medium-sized city. It's a nice place. You have the stories you need. You have cinemas. You have football teams. Not anyone good at the moment, but My local team that I mentioned there, they were playing in the fourth level in the 2018 season. In Norway, we have calendar year seasons from April to October usually. Then they was part of a fusion with the other club in the town. But it wasn't the economical success everyone was hoping the fusion was going to be. But both clubs have been starting up new teams to play at the bottom level again. But we'll see how that turns out. As I said, this year there was no grassroots football due to the pandemic. The next season will show us what is happening. I think will be quite important for football to see when do we get a vaccine.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, most leagues don't allow spectators or just a very limited number. In Norway, no, the limit is 600 in the top leagues, and that is if you can keep a distance of 1 meter behind them, and you have to split them in groups of 200 at different parts of the stadium. So they just went up to 600 from 200.
When I first spoke to you, you told me that you're not just a fan of this one club, but many clubs. You told me also about United, Man United, and Eintracht Frankfurt.
Yeah, for very many people in Norway, English football is the great thing. That's what's been shown on television since the 60s, and everyone grew up with watching the English teams. And for me, it became Manchester United that was my gateway to football, you can say. But in the later years and because the seasons after Alex Ferguson have been horrible, but also before that, I started losing interest in both in English football in general, but also in United, especially. It wasn't giving me as much as it was before. Everything seemed to be about money and not about football and sports. And also, I've been, you mentioned, Eintracht Frankfurt has been the team I was following in Germany. Juventus in Italy, as said. When the pandemic came, there were almost no football. But in Belarus, the president insisted the pandemic is no trouble for Belarus. Everything must continue. So the Belarus league at one time was the only league in the world playing, I think. And I found out then I have to find a team in Belarus to keep an extra eye on. And since Tromsø is my team in Norway, and it's the northernmost team in the professional team, I decided to go for the northernmost club in Belarus, Vitebsk. And they had an okay season. They were playing somewhere in the middle of the table. I have to admit, after the other leagues returned, I've not been following them as close. But also Faroese League from this small island nation out in the ocean between Norway and Iceland. They were starting up really early, and one of the major Norwegian broadcasters bought the rights to showing their matches. And they started with Fantasy League on the internet, and everything was totally crazy about the Faroese League for a few weeks. But then the Premier League restarted, the Norwegian League started, and suddenly there were like 3 people on Twitter still talking about the Faroese Leagues.
I found it interesting that you said that, the commercialization of the game is something that made you... Was that one of the reasons why you got so interested in ground hopping and grassroots football?
I think those things were a bit interconnected, that it helped me go away from the money football, that I had the alternative to go to see those lower league games and see and still watch football, even though I selected away another part of the football.
Yeah.
And I know several other groundhoppers who feel the same. There was one guy I've been meeting at several stadiums in Norway who's been traveling quite a lot in United Kingdom as well, and he originally was a Reading fan. And when Reading got promoted to the Premier League, I think early in the 2000s, he just lost interest because everything was plastic, as he calls it. It was it didn't have as much to do with real football anymore.
That's a shame. I find myself going through those kind of emotions right now. I support Arsenal, as I told you last time, and I was quite disturbed by the fact that 55 people lost their jobs. I don't know if you've been following that bit of the news.
Yeah, I picked up on the news, and there was a quite interesting talk about the Gunnersaurus case on one radio program I was listening to last weekend, where they actually invited a guy from the supporter club in Tromsø to talk about the Tromsø mascot, and they also had a football show host to talk about mascots in general. And it's such a shame that when these giant clubs are going to cut costs, it's not the costs of the players with their multi-million salaries that gets cut. It's the ordinary working people who hardly earn enough for house and bread.
And you'd think that a club of this stature would have, and it's not just Arsenal. A lot of these clubs are going through this at the moment, and I think they were in this situation even before the pandemic. The pandemic has just accelerated their need to do this, and I think we're seeing a lot more of it a lot sooner because of the pandemic.
I think it's one thing for the top level clubs with their multi-million budgets, and but those for example in England, I think there will be lots of bankruptcies in League One and League Two in the third and fourth level, because those clubs have quite high costs, and when they don't get to have people on their matches, things will be really tough. I have quite a few scarves from different clubs. As a groundhopper, since the flag made me like sea-level celebrity after going viral, sometimes when I visit a new place to watch a game, if someone from the club administration recognizes me, they, are you here? It's excellent. Here, I have a scarf as a
brilliant
as a present. So I have some scarves. I have a video it's a YouTube video. A guy took of me playing at the 100 episode celebration of a Norwegian podcast, Pyro and Pivo. And then I was playing a medley of football songs.
Wow.
Some very well-known football tunes, both from England and other countries. Some not so familiar, but this Pyro and Pivo podcast, they focus a lot on traveling to watch football and at all levels, and have a special love for Eastern European football. So I included a Romanian patriotic song that the supporters at the national stadium often sing. I included the Serbian national anthem and some Norwegian songs. The most famous song of the team of the podcast host had to be included, and of course the most famous song of my team, Tromsø, as well.
Nice, brilliant. I look forward to that. Marius, thank you once again for coming on Faraway Fan. I hope you had fun. It was great talking to you, man.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I hope you get out there again to watch some interesting football. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marius. Bye.
Yeah, goodbye.